The privatization of public housing in Chicago. Renaissance 2010 is not just a school plan. It is part of a much larger plan for gentrification and for moving out low-income African Americans and some Latinos from prime real estate areas. In fact, from the city altogether. These are the areas where the proposed school closings are concentrated. Gentrification is a key element of making Chicago a global city of increasing inequality in housing, income, quality of life, and use of urban space. To put it simply, the land is valuable, the people are not.
Groups seeking the assurances of American citizenship, advancement, and employment have always believed that education is one sure path to get there. They are then willing to achieve it by any means necessary. The desire that some have to profit from racial and economic segregation in education, coupled with the active desire members of segregated communities of color have for quality education, has led to our current moment where quality education is for some a distant mirage and the promise to provide is profitable for others.
Privatization of public goods and services is also largely pushed forward by an onslaught of market-based public pedagogy. From reality television that imagines community through social Darwinian business competition to political discourse that describes political issues through the health of the stock market, to the overtaking of school policy discourse by the business language of efficiency, competition, achievement, and choice that naturalizes the business uses of schooling rather than through public language. Market-based pedagogy produces common sense about the best course of public action. Unfortunately, this is common sense that frequently fails to cohere with reality or with the public interest. This is all too apparent when it comes to both public housing and public schooling.
I'ma work for it, ride for it, I'ma organize for it, stay up in the night and in the morning, I'ma rise for it, heart for it, mind for it, ears for it, eyes for it, peace and a place on this earth for me and mine for it, work for it, ride for it, I'ma organize for it, stay up in the night and in the morning, I'ma rise for it, heart for it, mind for it, ears for it, eyes for it, peace and a place on this earth for me and mine for it.
They gotta have it be mostly all poor people and people of color, because it's their whole business model is dependent upon like lifting people out of poverty rather than just integrating schools and providing high quality schools for everybody in the city off top as a way of addressing the issue.
Yeah, and it's like even more than their business plan is lifting people out of poverty, it's like their marketing plan is lifting people out of poverty. Right. They're like you said, they're selling it to a community that needs that so badly that it gives them like a market advantage.
Right. I mean, it's like they promise what they know people want to hear, but if they actually deliver on the promise, then they no longer have a business. So it can't actually work as well as they say it does, because then they won't make money.
Right, exactly.
Or yeah, they have no purpose to exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking right now about the relationship between charter schools and housing and gentrification, some of the themes of the Money, Power, Land, Solidarity podcast. So we heard some quotes from, what's the book you're reading from?
That book is called Capitalizing on Disaster, Taking and Breaking Public Schools.
And basically your takeaways from that book in the sections you were reading them to me, like how did like the attack on public housing in Chicago and the gentrification of those neighborhoods in Chicago relate to education? Like how did education relate to that real estate project?
I think especially in Chicago, what I was reading is they had a really aggressive campaign of closing schools where they really shut down a bunch of schools, which was just off top, like making less of a reason to stay and displacing people. And I feel like it was really aggressively displacing people from the city and making life harder for them.
Yeah,
and with the schools, and then opening up a whole slew of charter schools and these different ways to evade accountability and to pop up like outside of the reach of like school boards or democratic institutions, and then are accountable to like business interests and different entrepreneurs and people who are seeking to like profit off of the situation.
Right. I like those quotes the way it describes like market economics and market ideology, like the whole program at a charter school where people are treated like clients and it's a business language and this language of competition and exclusivity, and the very nature of it being to quote unquote improve upon or replace like the failed public education system. I don't believe that it's failed, but that's in their whole logic. It's like anything that's public is bad and anything that's business minded and from the capitalist class is good. And those two things are linked together.
And a lot of times I've heard it show up at the school building where it's like, it's pitched as like, oh, we get to evade that like cumbersome bureaucracy of like accountability, it's like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like kind of can be like sweet, and especially it's really a slick plan because it seemed as like you're actually doing the right thing and you're actually able to like do more of the, I don't know, justice, some shit. I don't know.
And I think what's so upsetting about it is that it's like, it could be a place where good could be done. I think that's why people go that's why some people go work at charter schools. I can speak for myself. Like sometimes when I think about all of this, it makes me start to think like, why am I even working at a charter school if I hate them so much or whatever? But it's like, because there is the possibility for like new actually like revolutionary practices to be happening, but that's not actually what they want to do. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's not actually the goal, even though they say it is.
Right. And I think it completely mirrors the public housing conversation and everything, because I feel like the public education system was at the same exact crossroads where it was like it was underfunded, divested from, in dire straits. You know what I'm saying? It was in a terrible situation. And we were at a point where we could have invested in public education, and you know what I'm saying? And kind of like how Sam Stein was saying in the interview, we as leftists don't want to get caught arguing for what was, you know what I'm saying, or the or some, you know what I'm saying. It's like, I'm not saying public education was perfect or even defendable right now, but but they took advantage, got ahead of us, took advantage of this crisis, and then steered it towards privatization. And they were so ready for that they swooped in really aggressively and cloaked it in this language of equity and social justice.
And it's not even just swept in and took advantage of a crisis, it's created a crisis. So it's understanding that what I like about thinking about the housing and the education together is that neoliberalism, like the dominance of the market and the destruction of public education, public healthcare services, public housing, was a political project, and it meant that they were underfunding it, divesting from it, neglecting the housing stock, challenging the public schools and undermining them so that they could put forward this corporate plan. And it was like a 1-2 punch. Grace, you made me think about something. We might have to bleep that because I don't, you know what I'm saying? We'll know what level of anonymity we need out here. My fellow workers is, when you're talking about like the potentials present, or like when you hear this critique and you understand really like the business interest behind the charter school, what position does that put you in as a worker? It reminds me of my experience working in nonprofits, because it's like you could clearly see that nonprofits are a capitalist tool, and but then it's recognizing that as workers, no matter where we are in the economy, we're battling those same forces and we have to get busy where we are. So it's like, you know, people working in nonprofits, sometimes it might be that you shouldn't work for a certain organization or it's not good for you. But also, I think we have to organize everywhere that we are. It's just like people who are working for Lyft and Uber. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like,
or Amazon.
Yeah, it's like not buying the marketing that they sell to the students and to the workers to try to cloak it in some type of morality. It's like, no, these are the capitalists bringing us together, but we have power when we're together to do something about it.
Hell yeah. I mean, It's like the students and families that come to charter schools, like still deserve like to be treated well and to have people there for them. And then like, that's something that keeps me hanging on, like the idea of organizing, my coworkers, to create like schools that we actually want for ourselves and our kids. And then also like to be there for our students and families, you know, because like it's similar to the gentrification conversation, because it's like I don't blame the families for leaving public schools to come to charter schools. Like it's like education is fucked up everywhere, and it's not their fault.
Yeah.
That charter schools are taking over. Like, and then
how do you feel about or even the employees then too? Because or like TFA people or people, you know what I'm saying, is try not to blame like the individual workers, because a lot of times they can bear the brunt of it too.
For sure, it's really complex.